Mars was once Earth's twin, until humanity escaped and destroyed it. There's a rule in conspiracy storytelling. If a planet looks dead now, ask who killed it. Let's start with the lie we've been told since childhood. Mars is barren. Just another rock floating in space, cold, empty, pointless. NASA calls it the red planet. But they never call it what it might actually be, the first casualty of human civilization. Because if you look closely, not with a telescope but with intent, you'll find the scars. Riverbeds winding across Martian deserts like ancient veins. Craters that don't look random but surgical. Even mountain ranges carved in patterns too regular to be called natural. And then there's the atmosphere. Traces of xenon-129, the radioactive fingerprint of a nuclear explosion. It's not a glitch in the data. It's a clue someone hoped we'd miss. Ask yourself, what if Mars wasn't always like this? What if, a long time ago, it looked like Earth? Oceans, rain, wind that carried pollen instead of dust, a breathable sky. What if Mars was Earth, version 1.0? Let's go deeper. Why does Mars have a 24-hour and 39-minute day, eerily close to Earth's? Why did ancient cultures track its movements obsessively, even worship it? Why are there monolithic structures near the Cydonia region that resemble pyramids? And one face, carved, looking straight up into the void? This is where the story splits. One path, the one taught in school, says Mars just cooled off, lost its magnetic field. Atmosphere drifted away. Water evaporated. Nothing to see here. The other path? It says something else. It says that Mars died in war. That its civilization, advanced and old, pushed too far. Maybe it was technology. Maybe ideology. Maybe something they tried to summon. Or something they couldn't stop. But it ended in fire. A global detonation. Two distinct hotspots still glow with residual radiation, picked up by satellites. And between them, silence. Physicist Dr. John Brandenburg, you can Google him, says the xenon isotope pattern found in Mars' atmosphere is consistent with two massive hydrogen bomb explosions. According to him, Mars didn't just die, it was murdered. And the reason no one's talking about it, because someone already escaped, and that someone might be us. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. What if humans didn't evolve on Earth? At least, not fully. What if we were relocated, transported? The last survivors of a war no one wants to remember? Let's break that down. First, human evolution has gaps, sudden leaps in brain volume, periods of inexplicable silence in the fossil record, followed by architectural genius and language almost overnight. Evolution doesn't work like that, unless someone helped. Second, our bodies are weird. Chronic back pain. Maybe Earth's gravity is just a bit too much for us. Sunburns. Maybe our skin wasn't designed for this level of UV. And sleep cycles, oddly synced more closely to Mars than Earth. Coincidence or legacy? There's a deeper layer. Myths, lots of them, tell of gods falling from the sky, bringing fire, knowledge, and rules. Sumerian tablets describe beings from a red star that brought the seed of life. In ancient Egypt, Mars was a place of chaos, the battlefield of the gods. Why such specific imagery, passed down over millennia? Why did every culture fear and obsess over the same red dot in the sky? Because maybe they remembered. Maybe the stories weren't metaphors. Maybe they were warnings, echoes. Half-buried memories from before the reset. And the survivors? They didn't just come to Earth. They started over, quietly, secretly. And as generations passed, the truth became myth. The myth became bedtime stories. And the stories became forgotten. Until now. The kind left behind by a civilization that tried to build forever. And failed. But here's the real question. If Mars was destroyed, why are we still here? Because someone got out. The builders, the thinkers, the ruthless. Maybe they launched the war and escaped the fallout. Maybe they were just lucky. Either way, they didn't come to Earth for a vacation. They came to rebuild. And if they brought anything with them, it wasn't gold. It wasn't power. It was code, DNA. Not all of it. Just enough to seed a second chance. Maybe hidden in a select few. Maybe scattered in us all. But if that's true, then what we call human might be just a remix of something Martian. And your body, your memories, your instincts to build, conquer, create, or destroy, that might not be Earthborn at all. That might be a legacy of a world we've already killed once. The real conspiracy isn't what's on Mars. It's what's inside you. Martian meteorites and the genetic puzzle. Earth can't solve. In 1984, a frozen piece of rock was discovered in Antarctica. It looked like nothing special. Just another meteorite among thousands. Scientists cataloged it, labeled it ALH 84001, and stored it for study. But over a decade later, something inside that rock shattered everything we thought we knew. Under intense microscopes, researchers found structures resembling fossilized bacteria, microscopic worm-like shapes embedded deep within the meteorite. The official story? Maybe it's contamination. The real story: this rock came from Mars. Yes, Mars. ALH 84001 is part of a small group of space rocks called SNC meteorites, which are widely accepted to have originated from Mars, blown off its surface by ancient impacts, drifting through space for millions of years before crashing to Earth. Their chemical signatures, oxygen isotopes, trapped gases, match readings from Mars' atmosphere with eerie precision. So, what happens when we find potential life, fossilized, preserved, inside a Martian rock? We bury it in disclaimers. We drown it in uncertainty. We sweep it under layers of could be, maybe, further study needed. But here's the twist. This isn't the only clue. In the decades since, more Martian meteorites have been discovered. And in several, scientists have found complex organic molecules, the building blocks of DNA. Not quite alien code, but pre-code. The ingredients of life. And still, official channels won't say what everyone's already whispering. We might not just be from Earth. We might be assembled. Let's shift focus. Inside the human genome are sequences we don't understand. Entire strands labeled as junk DNA. Because scientists couldn't find a function. But what if they're not junk? What if they're legacy? In 2013, a group of Kazakhstani researchers proposed a radical idea: that human DNA contains an intelligent signal, a form of biological SETI, a message encoded not in radio waves, but in our own cells. Their theory? That life on Earth was deliberately seeded, possibly as part of a galactic experiment or civilization-saving contingency plan. Sounds crazy? Maybe. But if we're finding organic chemistry in Martian rocks and mysterious genetic material in ourselves, the gap between sci-fi and scientific fact is narrowing fast. Here's where things turn darker. Certain genetic traits in humans don't follow normal evolutionary logic. There are resistances to cosmic radiation found in some individuals, far beyond what Earth exposure could account for. There are rare blood types, like Rh-, that seem to appear from nowhere, with no traceable ancestral origin. In fact, Rh- mothers can reject Rh-positive fetuses, as if the body itself detects an incompatible bloodline. Why would nature do that, unless two lineages were never meant to merge? Some researchers quietly refer to these as non-terrestrial markers, traits that feel off, slight differences in skull shape, temperature regulation, even intuitive intelligence. These aren't common, but they're consistent enough to raise questions. Is there a subset of humanity carrying something more? Something older? Something Martian? And let's not forget the children. In multiple regions, from Russia to India, children have been born claiming vivid memories of Mars. One famous case, Boriska Kiprianovich, stunned researchers and journalists with intricate descriptions of life on Mars, including cities, air systems, and wars, all delivered when he was just a toddler. Dismissed as fantasy? Perhaps. But how does a child, born in a remote village, describe Martian surface conditions later confirmed by satellite imagery? Coincidence doesn't explain this, but legacy does. Legacy left in code, in memory, in instinct. Let's return to the meteorites. If Mars truly died in fire, fragments would be all that remain, blown into space, scattered across the solar system. And if those fragments carried organic material, it would land not just on Earth, but possibly Venus, Europa, Titan, or anywhere gravity would catch them. But Earth, with its warmth, its water, its chemistry, was fertile. Maybe that's why we're here. Not because life began here, but because it resumed here. And if that's true, then evolution is only part of the story. The rest, importation, intervention, inheritance. Because what Mars couldn't protect, Earth absorbed. And what we call life might just be the salvaged remnants of a world we no longer remember, but still carry within us. The Martian DNA isn't hiding in some alien underground base. It's hiding in our bones, in our memory, in our children, and in the rocks beneath our feet. The question isn't whether we came from Mars. It's who else knows? And what are they doing with that information now? Did ancient civilizations know we came from Mars? History, they say, is written by the victors. But myth. Myth is whispered by survivors. Every ancient civilization on Earth, from Sumer to Egypt, from Mesoamerica to the Vedas of India, tells of a time when beings from the sky descended. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, literally. They came in fire, in metal ships, in storms. They came from the stars. And they didn't just visit, they intervened. The Sumerians, often credited with inventing writing, law, and mathematics, called them the Anunnaki, gods from the heavens, who created mankind to serve them. According to their oldest clay tablets, the Anunnaki came from a place called Nibiru, a mysterious, wandering star often associated with Mars by alternative scholars. These weren't vague spiritual beings. They were described with stunning anatomical detail. Bearded, tall, with power over metal, medicine, and genetics. Sound like mythology? Maybe. But if it is, why does nearly every culture describe the same thing? The Egyptians spoke of gods descending from the Red Land, Deshret, the desert, or perhaps Mars. Their god Osiris was not born of this earth. He came, ruled, died, and left behind a civilization-advancing legacy. His resurrection? A memory of returning life, perhaps after extinction. In India, the Vedic texts describe flying machines, vimanas, battles in the sky, and even weapons that resemble nuclear explosions. The Mahabharata recounts a war so catastrophic that it left cities in ashes, people vaporized, and strange mutations among survivors. And these weren't written in modern times. They're over 5,000 years old. Now ask yourself, if all of these civilizations, separated by oceans and continents, described nearly identical origin stories, is it a coincidence? Or a leak? Leakage from a shared ancestral memory, one that goes back to a time before Earth, before the reset, before Mars fell. Let's shift from stories to stone. Across the globe, megalithic structures exist that defy not just modern construction, but known history itself. Precision-cut stones, weighing hundreds of tons, aligned with stars and planetary cycles. Many of these ancient sites show particular obsession with Mars, the red planet aligned with temples, with rituals, with calendars. Why Mars? Why not Venus or Mercury? Because someone told them Mars mattered. And here's where it turns sharper. Some of these structures depict humanoids with elongated skulls, larger than normal eyes, and strangely proportioned bodies. In Peru, in Malta, in Egypt, skulls have been found matching these traits, not deformed, not bound in ritual, but naturally shaped, suggesting another branch of humanity entirely, one that didn't evolve here. Is it possible that these weren't gods, but refugees? Martian survivors who arrived on Earth and were deified by early humans simply because they carried knowledge from a lost world? Here's a darker thought. What if they didn't just visit? What if they took over? Let's talk genetic manipulation. Ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, removed from biblical canon, describe beings called Watchers, who came to Earth, mingled with humans, and created hybrids, beings of power and corruption. These hybrids, said to be giants, or Nephilim, were the result of forbidden unions. But what if the story isn't about divine sin, but genetic experiment? What if Earth was never meant to be a blank slate, but a test site? A controlled environment where Martian DNA could be preserved, evolved, or weaponized. Sound far-fetched? Then ask why the Vatican has a deep space telescope named LUCIFER aimed directly at Mars. Ask why the elite build bunkers underground while investing billions into spaceflight. Ask why ancient knowledge, like the Library of Alexandria, was burned, while certain families and institutions seem to grow more powerful with every catastrophe. The truth might be this: ancient civilizations knew we came from elsewhere, and they tried to preserve that knowledge, in stone, in symbols, in story. But over time, the survivors became rulers, the rulers became gods, and the gods buried the truth. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. It seeps up through cracks, in meteorites, in DNA, in child prodigies who claim memories not their own, in pyramids misaligned with history books, in instincts that don't match our environment, and in every human's inexplicable urge to look up at the red planet and wonder, did we leave something behind? Or did we come from there all along? Because if Mars fell and its legacy was carried here, then Earth isn't just a planet. It's a vault of memory, of code, of warnings. And we, the descendants of exiles, may be just starting to remember. Elites are quietly mining Martian DNA to control the future. If humanity really is carrying remnants of Martian DNA, ancient, alien, perhaps even engineered, then the most pressing question is, who knows? And what are they doing with it? Here's the answer most people won't say out loud. They're already using it, quietly, selectively, systematically. The elites of our world, the power brokers, tech titans, and hidden bloodlines, aren't just exploring Mars out of curiosity. They're looking for something, and some of them may have found it inside us. Let's rewind to a name you've heard before: Elon Musk. His obsession with Mars isn't just scientific, it's spiritual. In multiple interviews, he's slipped, saying things like, "I want to die on Mars, just not on impact," or "We must preserve consciousness in case Earth is destroyed." But preserve whose consciousness? And why Mars? SpaceX's Mars mission isn't about colonization. It's about extraction, of control, of knowledge, of legacy. Musk, Neuralink, SpaceX, all part of the same pipeline, not just to send people to Mars, but to decode what's left of it inside us. Let's talk about DNA companies. Over the last decade, millions of people voluntarily gave their genetic data to corporations like 23andMe and Ancestry. The promise? Find your heritage. The reality? Your entire genome, your most personal blueprint, is now sitting in a database. One quietly accessed by military contractors, pharmaceutical giants, and data firms with ties to defense budgets. Why? Because hidden in the noise of billions of human sequences, there are outliers, strange clusters, anomalies, genes that shouldn't exist based on regional evolution, genes that don't match anything native to Earth. These outliers are flagged, isolated, cataloged, and in some cases, acquired. There's a reason billionaires are obsessed with longevity, AI-human hybrids, and genetic perfection. It's not just ego, it's inheritance. If Martian DNA carries enhanced resilience, higher cognition, or control over biochemical environments, then whoever controls that code controls the next stage of human evolution. And that's exactly what's happening. In labs you'll never see, samples are being cloned, edited, activated. Experimental children born in secret, not from scratch, but from combinations that shouldn't exist. Using gene editing tools like CRISPR, researchers can now turn on dormant DNA, code we've never understood, hidden in so-called junk sequences. But what if that junk isn't junk? What if it's encrypted? A legacy from another world, needing only the right conditions, or the right key, to awaken. Ask yourself why so many tech giants are pouring billions into consciousness uploading, brain-computer interfaces, and synthetic DNA. These aren't toys. They're vessels, the kind of systems you'd build if you were trying to restore something ancient, something that couldn't survive the journey, but could survive in you. Let's go darker. What if Martian DNA isn't just a curiosity, but a signal? Something designed to activate under pressure, like a sleeper agent, a failsafe, a backup plan for a species that saw its own extinction and wrote its salvation into biology. And what if the elites know that? What if they're not trying to activate it for humanity, but for themselves? You think it's a coincidence that all this technology, AI, biotech, Mars colonization, DNA harvesting, is accelerating at the exact same time? It's not. It's a race, not to build the future, but to reclaim a past we've forgotten. And the worst part? You're not invited. Because if there's a fragment of ancient Martian intelligence encoded inside certain people, and those people can be tracked, traced, and studied, then the rest of us, we're just noise, control groups, background data. Or worse, expendable. Ask yourself, why are governments suddenly obsessed with space militarization? Why is Mars the priority, when we haven't even mapped Earth's oceans? Why are only a handful of corporations allowed access to space infrastructure? Because Mars isn't just a planet. It's a memory vault. And DNA is the key card. If they crack that code, if they find the full Martian genome and restore its intelligence, they won't use it to save you. They'll use it to replace you. To build a post-human future where memory, bloodline, and obedience are engineered from the stars, and loyalty is hardwired into every gene. And what do we become in that world? Artifacts, fossils. The second failure. Unless we wake up first. Unless we remember that buried deep in our own bodies is a code older than Earth, and more powerful than any government. Because Martian DNA isn't a myth. It's the conspiracy you're made of.